Microsoft is re-releasing all of their business productivity suite around the same time frame. So what you'll see coming out is not only an update to SharePoint, but also a new version of Microsoft Link, which is their collaboration and instant communication server and voice over IP solution. You'll also see a new version of Exchange roll out. There'll be some updates to the functionality that's provided with Office 365, and then of course their desktop application suite, which is Microsoft Office, will be updated as well. Today we're going to just focus on SharePoint 2013 though. SharePoint 2013 provides a comprehensive solution for your information workers, and that allows your people to transform the way that they work while still preserving the benefits of having that structured process, IT compliance, and being able to leverage your existing IT investments. Of course, if you use SharePoint in the past, you know it makes it really easy to store your data and synchronize that with all of the different devices that you work on. With SharePoint 2013, we have a new simplified interface. It really helps you streamline common tasks and helps you create sites and keep your teams in sync. We have new work management capabilities that allow you to organize all of your tasks, and that doesn't matter if they're stored in SharePoint or in Outlook Exchange or in some of the other platforms that will be re-released like Microsoft Project and Project Server. So today we're going to focus on four main areas: social, cloud, devices, and control. The social computing and collaboration features that are included in SharePoint 2013 offer very improved administration and user experiences. There's a lot of new functionality for enterprise users so that they can share and collaborate with everyone else in their environment. There's this new concept that's called a community site, and we'll take a look at what that looks like in a minute, but it offers a forum for us to experience and categorize discussions around the subject area. Now, in the past, we had departmental sites, and they're still available as well. But a departmental site is usually based on a business unit within your organization, whereas a community site really allows you to create an area in SharePoint where you can collaborate across departmental sites around a particular area of knowledge. We have a new community portal that allows you to have search-driven results instead of the content being moved to an organizational area in SharePoint. It can be aggregated to that search capability. We'll see that there's also been some enhancements in the My Sites, specifically around the new newsfeed capabilities that are automatically included out of the box, and also the integration with some of Microsoft's cloud-based services like Yammer. SharePoint 2013 was designed with a cloud-integrated approach. So you're going to see those features prevalent throughout SharePoint. Whether we're talking about the ability to store your documents in SharePoint on-premise or directly through SkyDrive Pro, or if we're looking at the integration with Microsoft's newly acquired enterprise collaboration cloud-based service, Yammer, then you'll see those capabilities that are baked into the product. SharePoint's offered some new optimized viewing experiences so that you can get a consistent functional experience across a lot of different form factors. Previously, some of the built-in mobile views that were included out of the box didn't really offer a whole lot of functionality. There's been a lot of work in that area to make sure that if you have content that's stored in SharePoint, that you can access that content successfully, regardless of whether you're using a traditional PC or if you scale it all the way down to a mobile device. There's been a lot of work that's been added around control, and we're going to deep dive into that and see some specific areas where Microsoft has made some improvements. But around the records management and compliance, Microsoft's really provided improved ways to help you protect the business and the data that you need. There's a records archive and in-place records retention that were included in the previous versions of SharePoint, and they're still supported. But with SharePoint 2013, Microsoft has introduced some new retention policies that can be applied at the site level, and they've also introduced a new EDiscovery capability, and we'll be taking a look at that as well. Let's start with some of the social enhancements. First of all, microblogging. If anybody has ever used Twitter, then you know exactly what microblogging is. With microblogging in SharePoint 2013 is supported by this new newsfeed page that we were talking about. That's something that's included automatically in your My Site, and it provides an aggregated view of all your activities, not just your microblogging, but everything, any content, any person, that you're following, any note that you make, any document that you tag or like or rate, or anyone else that has any interaction with you, that new news feed allows you to aggregate all of those activities in one area so that you can see everything all at once. Specifically, there's been some new microblogging functionality, and if you're used to Twitter, you'll be very accustomed to this, but the functionality that allows users to participate in conversations. So if someone makes a new post somewhere else outside of my site or adds a document, I can add a comment or reply to someone else's comment, and all of that will be aggregated in my news feed. If someone posts a picture and tags me in the picture, and tags are now supported as well, just by using the @ symbol like you're accustomed to in Twitter. You can also hashtag for search strings. So if you wanted to provide a comment to something that someone has posted, and then also provide a way for users to find that easily in their own aggregated news feed, you could provide the hashtag search symbol for that. A little bit of how this is done behind the scenes, the architecture that you see. In SharePoint 2013, there's a new in-memory cache. It's called the distributed cache that maintains that news feed. And that's built on top of the new app fabric that's included with the Windows Server platform. This feed's infrastructure better supports the read and write operations that are generated by activities and participation in microblogging, as opposed to traditional SharePoint activities we would think of, such as uploading a document. That API, the Feeds API, it's extensible, so it's not something that's just included. It's something that your developers can actually write against and include in your own custom versions of your SharePoint sites. For example, you could develop a new application for users to check in at different locations within your building or even across buildings in a campus. And that way, it would be easy for them to let everyone else know where they were working that day. In SharePoint 2013, every My Site includes a document library for microblogging. That's the news feed we were talking about. That list, that microblogging list, it maintains all of the users' posts instead of having them in a single host collection as SharePoint 2010 did. It's an aggregated view of everything that's happening across all of the site collections. That means that their activities are persisted. If you wish, you can persist them indefinitely. You're no longer limited to that 14-day limit that we had in SharePoint 2010. And again, that news page display, it feeds an aggregated view of all your activities, and that's what's maintained in the distributed cache. EDiscovery. So this is part of the control that we were talking about earlier. EDiscovery is how records managers or litigators can discover any content that's necessary to support the case that they're making that's been stored in electronic format. Now, typically, your EDiscovery would require your litigators to search across documents that might be stored in SharePoint or on a file share or on a website somewhere, across your email messages, which are usually stored completely separately from your internet sites. They may even have to do discovery at the local level by looking at files that are stored on laptops and desktops and file servers and whatever other source you might have for that information. Then they have to collect all that information from all of these disparate systems and kind of aggregate them together to make, and then search for the content that meets the criteria to make a legal case. Well, in SharePoint 2010, Microsoft added the hold and EDiscovery feature, and that made it possible to put a hold on any site in SharePoint. Records Manager could put a hold on documents or pages or items or anything, prevent users from deleting them or editing them. And then also in Exchange 2010, Microsoft introduced a way to put legal holds on individual mailboxes and even be able to conduct searches across multiple mailboxes even without having to have permission to that user's mailbox. And that did support a lot of the user's e-discovery needs. But in what we'll see in SharePoint 2013 is that we have a new Discovery Center that's been added, and the Discovery Center leverages some of the enhanced searching capabilities that are also included with SharePoint 2013 to allow you to have one single site that the litigators can use to conduct their EDiscovery. And that site allows those litigators to search across all of the different content areas. So this new unified EDiscovery that's built into SharePoint, it's done by way of having a new site for managing all the discovery cases and all the legal holds. The EDiscovery Center site template is created through a portal, which you can access discovery cases, you can conduct searches, you can place content on hold, and then you can also export the content. And with every case, you create a new site that uses this template. And each case is actually a collaboration site that includes document libraries, where you can store documents that are related to the management of the case. In addition, you can also associate several other things with each case. We see that earlier that we had the EDiscovery Center itself, which is the site that's used to manage the preservation, the search, and the export of all the content. We can place the SharePoint in-place hold, which preserves either entire sites or particular documents or particular pages, that still allows the users to access that content, but it prevents them from deleting those if they're necessary for our case. This new unified EDiscovery site works not only across SharePoint, but also across Exchange. So you can search for content that's been stored in the new storage context that's available across Exchange and SharePoint collaboratively. That allows you to put a legal hold on content that's stored in an Exchange mailbox from this new EDiscovery site. You also have the ability to do query-based preservation, which means that instead of searching for a specific document, you can search for general terms, and any content that might meet your search criteria can then be placed on a legal hold. Microsoft has made a lot of improvements in device support as well. With SharePoint 2013, there are new optimized viewing experiences across different mobile platforms. There are several new features that are added to help improve both the worker productivity and also usability on the device. There's a new optimized mobile browsing experience that's built into SharePoint, so out of the box, the mobile browsing experience has a new contemporary view. If your device supports it, you can switch back to the classic view and get the entire site, or you can use the new view as well. There's a full screen UI. This gives the ability to have a full desktop view of a SharePoint site if you have a large smartphone device or a tablet type device that supports the displaying of the entire site. There are new push notifications. There's a push notification capabilities included for mobile devices that allows your users to receive notifications from a SharePoint site if new content's been added, if their existing content has been modified, or if something's been deleted. For the mobile devices to receive those notifications, the device applications have to register on the SharePoint site. Once it's registered, there's an event handler that's available. It's included with some of the templates that are included with SharePoint 2013. But again, this is an extensible API, so if you're developing your own in-house applications and you would like to add that push notification functionality, you just write a workflow to the event handler, and then when the updates are made to the content, the push notifications are received on the devices that are registered with the application. There are new versions of the Office web apps that are available. These are the browser-based companions for the locally installed Office applications that we've had for the last 30 years, and we're talking about Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So when you have the Office web app server installed on SharePoint, then you have those applications available to you. That allows users to open up documents on their mobile applications by using a web browser, even if they don't have Word or PowerPoint or Excel installed. Now, the architecture behind that is a little bit different than it used to be. In SharePoint 2013, the Office web apps, they're no longer a companion product that's installed on a computer that's running SharePoint server like it was in 2010. Instead, it's a new standalone product. That helps you scale a lot better because now I don't have the requirement to install Office web apps on all of my front-end servers if I want to make sure that my users have access to those web apps no matter which front-end server they're getting. Instead, now I can create a dedicated Office web app server or as many as necessary to support my capacity requirements, and that dedicated server is separate from the web front-end servers. It still provides that mobile browser-based viewers for the applications. The viewers are still called Word, Excel, PowerPoint mobile viewers, and they're optimized to render documents for a phone or a touchscreen type device. There's been several enhancements around business intelligence. The SharePoint 2013 Business Intelligence applications and tools will let you organize your goals, processes, and performance requirements. You can create some data mashups using Power Pivot and Power View, and then with the ability to process literally billions of rows and create data models to facilitate sharing and collaboration through Excel services. So still, you have the ability for the users to get to this functionality without necessarily having those business productivity applications installed locally. Power View provides an intuitive reporting interface, and the reporting interface that's included allows users to produce ad hoc reports. So there's not always a necessity to have a dedicated team of people to produce reports if you can give your users an interface that allows them to drill down and query ad hoc the information that they need. With performance point services that are included and the dashboard designer and also Visio services that are included, you can really create some sophisticated dashboards that are capable of taking information that might be stored in reports or data sources that are somewhere else on your SharePoint site, and you can kind of create a mashup and have that one report viewable for your audience. Now, performance point services. Performance point services allow your users to create some interactive dashboards based on those KPI web parts that are available and the data visualizations that are included, scorecards, reports, and filters, for example. Performance point services in SharePoint 2013 have some new features to support business intelligence applications, such as dashboard migration. So you'll be able to copy your entire dashboard, all the dependencies and everything else, to other users, other sites, or other site collections. And that allows you to migrate any single items that you have into an integrated collaborative environment. There are some filter enhancements that are included with the search. The UI has been enhanced to allow your users to easily view and manage filters, including giving your users the ability to search for items within filters without having to navigate through the entire tree like you had to in the old UI. There's a new BI Center. The BI Center has been updated. It's a lot cleaner. It's easier to use. You have folders and libraries that are included out of the box, and of course you can customize that to store whatever content that you need, but it works pretty well out of the box as it is too. There's support for analysis services from SQL Server that have been added, and that new feature eliminates the need for a developer to establish a Kerberos delegation. So whenever a per-user authentication is required for analysis services, data services, the new analysis services effective user can be used instead of having to do a pass-through authentication. Excel services has also been improved. Excel services is what allows us to view and interact with Excel workbooks that have been published to a SharePoint site without necessarily having to have SharePoint installed locally. So the users are able to explore their data and conduct analysis in a browser window just as they would if they were in the Excel client. The data exploration improvements have been made. People can easily export the data and explore it and conduct analysis in Excel services, even if that back-end data source is not actually in a spreadsheet. For example, you could have the Excel services interface connected to a back-end SQL Server analysis services data or a Power Pivot data model. That allows the users to easily create pivot charts and pivot tables and different reports, or the ability to create ad hoc reports and see suggested ways to view additional information. There have been some enhanced timeline controls that are included. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to play around with the timeline controls, but anytime you have a data source, like you can store in SQL Server analysis services that collects data over a period of time, there was a time control that was included previously with Power View, but it's now also our time controls included with Excel services that allow you to view the data as slices over time. So it's very easy with this control to move forward by sliding the control back and forth, or you can even click the play button and allow it to play out over time to see how the data is changing over the period of time that's stored in your reporting services. We've had a chance to look at some of the updates that have been made across BI and support for mobile devices. Now let's take a look at some of the changes to the licensing. SharePoint still licensed on the server CAL model on-premise. There are some licenses, however, that are being discontinued or retired. For example, the need to have a SharePoint for Internet sites is being removed. That search server that used to be a standalone search server outside of SharePoint is being retired. A lot of the functionality that used to be included in that server is now included in the SharePoint Foundation Edition, and we'll take a look at that on the next slide. And then the need to have a separate license for Fast Search. Fast Search was a product that greatly enhanced Microsoft's SharePoint search capabilities. That's been removed, and those capabilities have now been included with your enterprise version of SharePoint. There is a new audit and control management license that you can optionally add if you want to add some of the EDiscovery, the comprehensive EDiscovery capabilities that we've talked about. And then, of course, Microsoft has also added the ability to connect SharePoint to the cloud. So if you want to host some of your applications in Azure instead of on-premise, you have the ability to do that. If you're on Office 365, there are storage allotments that are included automatically for your users based on what kind of plan they have. However, if that storage is not adequate, you can easily purchase additional storage per user or as an aggregate. Let's take a look at some of the features that are included with each one of the different editions. As you can see, on-premise, we still have the same 3 editions that we had in SharePoint 2010. We have the Foundation, Standard, Enterprise. The Foundation is something that you can download and deploy. It does require a properly licensed Windows server on which to install it and a properly licensed SQL server to support it. But other than that, there are no additional licenses that are required with Foundation. Foundation does have most of the basic features that you would expect from a standard SharePoint server. If Foundation doesn't include everything you need, like contents management, records management, some of the new workflows, then you can step up from Foundation to Standard, and Standard includes a lot more functionality than included with just Foundation. I should point out there that for the SharePoint 2013 workflow, the new workflow engine in 2013 has been completely redone, so it's not the same workflow engine that was included previously. However, for backwards compatibility, Microsoft did include the 2010 workflow engine as well. So you actually have 2 workflow engines supporting this version of SharePoint. The old 2010 version, which is available across Foundation, Standard, and Enterprise, and the new 2013 version, which is available in Standard and Enterprise. Business Connectivity Services has been rolled all the way down to Foundation now. And for those of you that aren't aware of that, BCS is a way to get data that's not stored in SharePoint into your SharePoint views and lists. If you're looking at Office 365, you have a couple of different choices there. There's a SharePoint Online Plan 1 and Plan 2 that are usually associated with your information workers, and those can be purchased separately or they can be purchased in an Office 365 bundle. The Plan 2 is pretty equivalent to what you would have on-premise if you were looking at the enterprise licensing, whereas the Plan 1 is pretty equivalent to the standard. If you have workers that don't require storage in SharePoint, there's also a kiosk plan that would allow them to access SharePoint but not necessarily have the capability of storing anything there. For the extranet and internet site licensing, this has been greatly simplified. First, we need to have a little definition of what we mean when we say internal users and external users. We're not talking about the physical location where the users are when they access SharePoint. Instead, for licensing purposes here, an internal user would be an employee, or it could be a contractor, a vendor, a client, or an affiliate that I want to license in the same way that I'm licensing my internal employees. External users would be someone that's not an employee, or maybe it could additionally be for a public-facing internet site, it could be an unknown user. So under the old method, for an extranet, you had to have a license for the SharePoint server, of course, and then a CAL for each user that was a non-employee, or was an employee or a non-employee that you wanted to license under the same model as your employees. Or you had another choice there, which you could download. You could purchase SharePoint for internet sites, which is not only a separate purchase, but it was also a separate product. That was very confusing. It made it very difficult to take a SharePoint farm that you had previously deployed for internal purposes only and then extend that externally. So Microsoft has simplified that greatly with SharePoint 2013. All you need now is just to have that SharePoint server license and also a CAL for your internal users. For internet sites, it's even easier. You just have the server license. No CAL required for your external users. The internal users do need a CAL. And of course, to support those, you still have to have the proper licensing for Windows Server and SQL Server. For example, with your Windows Server, there's a necessary external connector if I'm connecting people in a public-facing website, for example, where I'm not authenticating the users and I don't know who they are. So in other words, I'm not purchasing a CAL for them. In addition to that, if you also are supporting a public-facing website using SQL Server, then there's a need to license that SQL Server using the per core model, or if you're under an older licensing agreement, possibly the per processor model, instead of using the device per user or per device model. So all in all, for extranets and internet sites, not only is it more affordable to use SharePoint now, by a long shot, because those internet site licenses were pretty expensive, but also it's easier. The licensing model is greatly simplified. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today, but before we leave, I'm going to open up the lines here for a second in case anybody has any questions. I didn't see any questions come across the Q&A manager, but if you have any questions, let me unmute everyone real quick and you can ask it live.
Participant lines unmuted.
Okay, we should be unmuted. Are there any questions about anything we talked about this morning?
Sorry, I showed up late. What is the delivery date of SharePoint 2013?
That's a good question. What is the delivery date of SharePoint 2013? Microsoft hasn't given us a firm date yet. The guidance that we're receiving is to expect SharePoint 2013 and all of the other 2013 business productivity applications somewhere in mid-Q1 of 2013. If you're a volume license customer, you can log on to your VLSC site now, and if you have any of those products that are included in your current agreement, you can download the RTM version of those today. Do you have any other questions around SharePoint 2013?
One more from the late guy. Is the SharePoint Designer tool, sorry I missed the front part of this. Is that also reworked? Is there a Designer for 2013 or is it an entirely new product?
Yes, that's a very good question because with SharePoint 2013 we do have two workflow models now. So you would need the updated version of the SharePoint Designer tool to be able to write against the SharePoint 2013 workflow model.
Will 2010 workflows convert over, or will we have to rebuild them?
You don't necessarily have to convert them. You could manually convert them. I'm not aware of a tool that would do that automatically yet. However, because SharePoint 2013 supports both models, it has the 2010 workflow engine and also the new 2013 workflow engine, then you could use either one. And again, the only limitation there is that the Foundation Edition, which is sometimes called the free edition, it does not include the new 2013 workflow engine. One last thing I'd like to put out there for you guys. We have a program here that at Software One we participate in. It's a Microsoft program that's called the Microsoft Experience Center. And what it's designed to do is to give you a look at the entire Microsoft Business Productivity Suite. So that would include not only SharePoint, but also Exchange and Lync and Office and some other features and functionality as well. For example, if you wanted to see some of the self-service components of System Center, or if you want to see Microsoft CRM, Dynamic CRM, we can deliver the Microsoft Experience Center for you so you can see the entire Business Productivity Suite on display. It's something that you can schedule through your business development manager. So if you just reach out to them, let them know that you're interested, we can get the details for you on that. I'd like to thank everyone for attending our webinar today. And just as a reminder, our webinars run on the second Thursday of every month. January 2013, we will not have a webinar because of the holidays and because of an internal sales meeting. We are canceling the one for January, but we will be back on Valentine's Day, February the 14th, with our next webinar. Thank you all for joining today. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to follow up with the TEs directly or reach out to your business development manager. Thank you.